Okay, let's get started. This is going to be a really quick introduction and scaffold to how to complete your current task in CathTech Year 10 on spreadsheets. What I have here is a copy of the rubric. You'll notice that I am going to scroll through ever so slightly so we can see, or I can draw your attention to the most important features. Something I would like to draw your attention to is the actual description of the task. And the description of the task says, through the use of a spreadsheet, determine which mobile phone plans is most suitable to your needs. Okay, so that's what you have to be able to do by doing this project. If we go to the next page, there's actually a summary of what you need to be able to do, or the steps you'll need to take one after the other. The first thing is it says you need to create a spreadsheet. Once you've created a spreadsheet, you need to gather data about your mobile phone habits. Now, all students should have done this by now. If you haven't, you are so far behind, it is not funny. You then need to select 4 mobile phone plans from various providers. Now, I have some limitations around this. Only one of these can be an unlimited phone call plan. And the 3 others must be other types of plans. So once you've gathered your data and selected your plans, the next thing you need to do is start thinking about how you're going to make this work. So we need to gather the data for that single night and then turn it into 2 consecutive months worth of data. You're then going to need to use various formulae, and they are listed there. You need to conditionally format your data and you need to create a graph. So I suppose the next question is, how does this all work? What I have here are some screenshots of an Excel spreadsheet. This very first screenshot, you'll notice, is actually from the data worksheet. Just slide that under there. So, I don't know if you can see that, just let me zoom in ever so slightly. What's actually in this spreadsheet is the date, the start time, the call type, the number I've called, and the duration of my phone call. Some points of interest. If I look over here, when I send a text message, it has no duration. So that would be on my very first worksheet. What I then could do, gentlemen, to make this equivalent to 2 consecutive months, is at the first step I would need to select a day's worth of data. So in this case, this is a day's worth of data. I know that the date of that is the 1st of the 7th of the 11th, and I know that day was actually a Friday. I know from my own records that Monday to Friday I have the same pattern of phone calls, so I could copy and paste that for every Monday to Friday, from the 1st of the 7th until the end of the 8th, or the end of August. That would be my 2 consecutive months. However, it would only give me work or weekdays during those 2 months. The next thing I would need to do is look at another block of data. So I'm going to block out this bit of data here, and that's a second day's worth of data. Now, on this second day's worth of data, you'll notice it's a bit longer than the first day. The reason it's longer is because it is a Saturday. Obviously, from my phone usage, I know that on a Saturday I use my phone a little bit more, so I've included some extra entries. I could now copy and paste that for every weekend day that happens in the 2 consecutive months, and I would have my complete set of data then. So, that'd be our first tab. Our actual second tab would be a tab that I've called Summaries. Okay, so let's have a look at what I'm going to do in the Summaries tab. In the Summaries tab, I need you down the side here, make some notes. So what I need to do is I need to have my plan number 1, my plan number 2, my plan number 3, my plan number 4 across the top. I then need to decide what I'm going to write or what I'm going to look for against these plans to compare them. Now the big thing for me would probably be how much calls are going to cost me a month. Next thing might be how much SMSs are going to cost me a month. And if I do, how much MMSs are going to cost me a month. I also then know that some call plans have a monthly fee, so I'm going to put that down as well. And finally, because I'm looking at total costs, I want to know what the total is going to be. Now, a couple of things that we need to be aware of. The total is going to be a calculated value. It's going to need to add up all of the items in this column. So beside total, I could put in the following formula. Equals sum. That means we're adding up everything that happens between these two references. So that's going to be between B3, which is that one, and this one down here, which is actually B9. So B3 to B9. So that'll give me the total for plan 1. And of course the total is going to be different for each column, so I could copy and paste that formula across for each one and it would give me a tally. The next thing that I probably need to consider is the fact that sometimes these call plans give me some free calls. So the cost is actually going to equal the total minus any discount. So if I put a discount down here, and then I could of course have a grand total, which would be the total minus the discount. Now in order for this all to work, you probably need to be able to do a summary of your data. So let me scroll up a little bit and let's talk about this data summary. So the summary of your data needs to capture things like the number of calls you've made in those 2 months, the duration of the call, so the total duration, and the number of SMS. How do we do that? There are really cool functions we can use in Excel, and probably what I would use for the number of calls is a COUNTIF function. So the number of calls equals COUNTIF. First thing you need to say is what you're tallying. So if I go back to this page, go back to my data page, what I'm actually going to look for, because this is the number of calls, is I'm going to count the number of times the duration is greater than 0. So we're going to count if, which column? It's going to be column E to E. What are we looking for? We're looking for duration is greater than 0. It's going to tally how many calls we've made. Once we've done those tallying, we can then use some of these figures down here to help us with our calculations up here. So for example, let's say that every SMS we send on plan 1 costs us 20 cents. Then the SMS cost is going to be 0.2 because we work in dollars. Multiplication symbol is the asterisk above key 8 on your keypad, multiplied by the number of calls, in which case the number of calls is in D29. And that will actually tell us the cost. Oh, sorry, SMS, that's D35. That'll actually tell us the number of SMSs we've sent and the cost associated. Finally, once we've done this, gentlemen, you need to go back and you also then need to do some graphing. So I've actually made a third sheet here called graph. And if I want to do a graph, I'm particularly lucky because there is a button that allows me to do so. Graphing. If I go to charts, I'm then going to have the option to be able to select the chart wizard, and it will then allow me to select the data I want to graph and graph the data on this page. And that will give you your answer and what you're required to do.